This 75% rule, I should have done that years ago. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I am wrapping up the books that I picked on my spring TBR. I kind of noticed that when I was putting books onto my TBR for like a season or for a readathon or for any reason, I was not reading every single book that I was putting on the list. So I set myself a little challenge in 2022 and I said that I wanted to read at least 75% of every TBR that I made. So now it is time to see if I actually managed to stick to that. First one that I picked out was Aisling in the City by Sarah Breen and Emer McLysaght. This is the fourth book in the Aisling series, and here you are following her in her new life in New York. She is working as an events executive for a really big events marketing firm in the city. Aisling is also finding love while she's there, making new friends, having new adventures. I think she's gone through quite a lot of growth in this book in particular, and she's really realizing that there's a lot that she can do by herself and for herself. I will say that there is a plotline with John, who a lot of readers will know as Aisling's first boyfriend from the first books, that I didn't particularly enjoy. I think that that was an aspect of Aisling's life that is better left in the past. But I get the feeling that Sarah and Emer are setting this up as kind of end goal Ross and Rachel style, and I don't know if I'm on board with that. As an immigrant myself, there's a lot that I can associate with here. The kind of Lemsip black market when everybody is sick and you kind of have to ask all of your friends if they've got a sachet of Lemsip drink for you available, or making calls back home and they're asking, oh, what time is it? What's the weather like over there? How are you settling in? What are you doing for the weekend? That's something that is definitely familiar to me, and it was really great to see that on the pages as well. Overall, I absolutely adored this book. I will keep going with the Aisling series. Unfortunately, we're only getting one other book in the series, and I am ready for it, but I'm not ready to say goodbye to Aisling. Next on the list was The Rebound by Catherine Walsh. This is another book by an Irish author, and instead of with Aisling where you're starting in Ireland and going to New York, with this one we're following Abby, who starts in New York and then comes back to Ireland after she's lost her job, after her relationship has broken down, and after she's lost her apartment. There's a childhood friends to lovers story in this where Abby meets with Luke, who brings her home from the airport, but she doesn't actually remember that he's the guy that used to live next door to her, that grew up together, they used to share bath times together. And I really loved this kind of rediscovery of who the other person was. When you haven't seen somebody in so long and you're kind of catching up on everything that's happened to them and catching them up on everything that's happened to you, I really loved that aspect of it, and I thought that this was a very sweet, very clean, very closed door romance. So if that's something that you're in the market for, definitely go and check it out. There were some of the side characters that it took me a little while to warm up to. I didn't really like Jess, who is Abby's best friend from back in New York. I felt like she kind of shoehorned herself into experiences and into places that she probably shouldn't have inserted herself into. I also found the relationship between Abby and her sister Louise a little bit difficult to read at the start because their relationship was so fraught, it was so icy, and there was really no love between the two sisters. Thankfully, it did thaw quite a lot as you're getting towards the end of the book, but I will say that my absolute favourite character throughout the entire book was Beth. Beth was the owner of the local cafe in the town that Abby grew up. They hadn't met each other. I think she had just recently come to the area and set the cafe up. And I absolutely loved this kind of transformation that Beth goes throughout the book. She starts off as kind of timid, a little bit shy, but she really comes out of her shell as she gets to know Abby a little bit more, as she meets some of Abby's other friends. I will say that there was a storyline between Abby, Beth, and Luke that I didn't particularly love, and I felt like it was just put in for extra conflict that didn't need to be added in. But overall, I genuinely loved this book. Next on the list was Dial A For Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto. I read this as a buddy read with my friend Cora. We didn't actually get a chance to discuss it because just after we had finished the book, Cora caught ill, so we never actually got to really sit down and talk about it. But I am really excited to hear her thoughts about it because I really enjoyed this one. This book has the vibes of Crazy Rich Asians meets Weekend at Bernie's. You are following Medi, who is set up on a blind date by her mother, and the date does not go very well, to the extent that the guy ends up dead in Medi's car. Throughout the rest of the book, Medi and her aunts and her mother are trying to kind of hide the body of this guy while also taking the catering and the styling and the flowers and all of that for one of the biggest weddings of the calendar that year. What makes this a little bit more hectic is that the wedding is being held at a hotel whose manager is one of Medi's ex-boyfriends from when she was in college, and she's never really gotten over the spark that they had, and there could be the chance that they're going to try and start up again if things start to go smoothly. However, this book is not the definition of things are going smoothly. Just when you're starting to think, oh, okay, everything is starting to calm down, things are really starting to level out, something will really come in and just throw you completely for a loop. There are so many twists and turns and unexpected things throughout this book. It really reads like a K-pop drama or a telenovela. And I know that this has been optioned for Netflix, so I'm really interested to see what the series is going to be like in comparison with the book itself. A sequel for this book also came out in March. It is called Four Aunties and a Wedding. And if you enjoy Dial A For Aunties, be sure that you go and pick up Four Aunties and a Wedding as well. Next up was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. And this book is all over the place on TikTok. You can't turn around without bumping into this one if you're on TikTok. Again, this was a buddy read with my friends Rosie and Roisin, and all three of us really enjoyed this one. This is the story of Olive, whose best friend Anne is interested in Jeremy, with whom Olive has had a couple of dates, but they never really went anywhere. She didn't really feel anything between the two of them. To make Anne really feel like it's okay for Anne and Jeremy to get together, Olive pretty much kisses the first guy that passes that she sees. The first guy that she sees is Adam, who has a reputation throughout their university as being very cantankerous, as being very cold. But the two of them decide to fake date because it's going to be beneficial for both of them. Olive, because she needs to keep convincing Anne that everything is okay and that she can go after Jeremy. Whereas for Adam, the benefits is that his grant is not going to be frozen because the university is afraid that he's going to jump ship and go and do his research elsewhere. There were a couple of things about this book that did make my eyebrows raise a little bit, between Olive having to sit on Adam's lap in a full theatre, or an Irishman whose name was Jeremy, which never happens. Or there was a specific part of the sex scene that involved a part of the anatomy being inserted into another part of the anatomy that for me doesn't really make any sense. However, overall, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really well written. It was really engaging. I completely sped through this book, and I'm really excited to see everything else that Ali Hazelwood is going to write. Those last two books were actually mentioned in one of my most recent Books and Brews videos where I talked about some buddy reads that I've had recently. So if you want to find out a little bit more about those books and find out if they're the ones for you, go and have a look at some more of my thoughts on them. And so we come to the one book on this list that I have not read. I never got around to Reputation by Lex Kircher. Okay, that's slightly a lie. I read the first chapter of Reputation by Lex Kircher. I read it as part of a kind of try your first chapter of 3 books that I just could not decide between. And because it was the book that caught me the least, it came down onto I'm not going to read this one first, I'm going to read this one last of the 3 that was on the list. And so I read the other 2 books that I had tried a chapter of, but because I wanted to take part in a book club for the appeal, I actually went to that one rather than going straight onto Reputation. But I am still really intrigued by the idea of Mean Girls meets Bridgerton, and I am going to pick it up very soon. Fingers crossed. So, on to the final book, and a non-fiction book was Mother Folklore by Dara O'Shea. I noticed while reading this book that I had actually been mispronouncing Darak's name the whole time, and that's on me. This book is perfect for anybody who is in any way familiar with the fact that Irish is a language. If you are a complete beginner and you want to learn a little bit more about the etymology of some of the words or how some of the phrases are used, or what Irish people's connection with the Irish language is, this is the book for you. If you are trying to look into a little bit more of Irish culture, trying to understand our relationship with the language again, this is the book for you. If you are a fluent Irish speaker like myself and you want to get a little bit more of an insight into the language that you speak, again, this is the book for you. I really enjoyed this book. I think I'm going to keep it as like a reference point to dip into every now and again when I want to kind of remind myself of home, or if I'm feeling a little bit homesick, this is the one I'm going to go for. That is how I got on with my spring TBR for this year. Thankfully, I managed to get over the 75% line because I actually read all bar one of the 6 books that I put on the list. Are there any of those that you have also read? Did you enjoy them, or were your opinions a little bit different to mine? Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.